Yes. So Chirag, you can confirm if everybody is able to see me, everybody is able to see the slide, and everybody is able to hear me as well.
Yeah, yes, sir. We are able to
Okay.
see and hear also.
Okay. So again, on behalf of Let's Evolve, I welcome all the participants. Thank you all for joining once again to this online series of lectures, which is like an online virtual Spurti camp for all of you. Um So actually, Chirag, beg forgiveness from all of you, but actually I am to be blamed. Yesterday I got busy with some things, some unavoidable engagement came because of which I could not make it yesterday. And that's why we are having it today. So I hope this change has not disturbed many of you. And in spite of that, you all have joined today. Thank you very much. So let us begin with our today's session, Rekindling Wisdom, Part 2. So if you all remember, last Friday, we all started this particular session called Rekindling Wisdom. Let's do a quick recap of what we discussed last time. So basically, in the whole flow so far is as follows. The first session which we had was about why we accept Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I hope all of you remember what all points we discussed in that regard. From various perspectives, we saw that how Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the next couple of sessions we dedicated to the next natural question which arises in our mind that, okay, we understand Lord Krishna as the Supreme, but then how about all the other demigods, Shivji, Ganeshji, Brahmaji, and so on and so forth? What about them? So those two sessions we dedicated to understanding the technical details of all those personalities, who they are, what role they play in the entire creation, and how they are not capital God, but they can be called as small gods, gods, the Devi Devta, the different demigods. And we saw so many differences between the Supreme Lord and the demigods, and how, if at all we have to worship somebody, who we are supposed to worship. We are supposed to worship the Supreme. And then in the last class, we started this new topic in the series, which is Rekindling Wisdom, which is a natural progression in this series, in the sense that we are now talking about knowledge, right? So in the last session, we talked about how knowledge is the real wealth, which can be acquired. So if you remember, we discussed various characteristics of real wealth. I'll not get into details of these. We discussed the real wealth as following characteristics, and the only thing which actually satisfies these characteristics is the wealth of knowledge. And then we saw this quote by Einstein that how education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. So it does not mean that we minimize the value of the subjects we learn in school, but what it really means is that education is more than literacy. To be able to write our name, to be able to read big books, to be able to do physics, chemistry, maths, and things like that properly is one thing. But then to apply the knowledge in our life and to become a man of values and character, to actually bring out the best from within us is another thing. So in that regard, we discussed this thing in the last session, that how education has come from this Latin word educare, which means to bring out from within, right? And what do we bring out from within? We can either bring out the beast from within, or we can bring out the best from within. So today's culture talks about bringing out the beast from within, but actually the real purpose of education is to bring out the best from within. That A is extra, beast versus best. And that happens by the way by the culture of knowledge, by training, and by coming in touch with nice books, by coming in touch with nice people, by coming in touch with nice culture. We all get refined more and more, we all get purified more and more, and our level of wisdom, our level of education improves. We saw in the last session how light has been knowledge has been compared to light, because if you remember, because of two reasons. One, as soon as there is light, we are able to see everything in a crystal clear fashion. Without that, we may have a lot of fear, we may have a lot of anxiety, but as soon as light is turned on, all fear goes away. From darkness to light, that means from ignorance to knowledge. And the other thing we saw is that it is a light, so we can't see without light, correct? I mean, this is a physics 101. This is the first fundamental aspect of physics, optics, that, to be able to see, light rays has to fall upon us. Without light, we can't see. Similarly, unless we have knowledge, we can't really see. And the corollary to it is, to the extent we have knowledge, to the extent we have wisdom, what reality we perceive around us depends on that. So if you remember, last time we discussed how if a villager is going around Mumbai city, he will have one perception of Mumbai city. On the other hand, if a CBI officer who has come to investigate a particular crime, when he is going around in Mumbai city, he will be looking at same things from different perspective, right? That's what knowledge or wisdom does to us. And this is what I just talked about. We saw this last time, that we are not supposed to unleash our inner beast. Rather, we are supposed to become a perfect gentleman, which is what is a symptom of real knowledge. And then we went ahead and we saw that how Lord Ram is Lord Krishna himself. When Lord Krishna comes to set an ideal example for human beings, how we should be ideal father, how we should be ideal husband, how we should be ideal son, how we should be ideal student, how we should be ideal father, and so on and so forth. So he is called as Maryada Purushottam, and he teaches us various knowledge, skills, and values, how to become perfect gentlemen. And that's what we started looking into one after the other. So the first aspect we saw was knowledge, and knowledge means to know matter, spirit, and controller. We saw this last time, so I'll not get into details of that. We can just remember this MSc formula. It's not Master of Science, but it is matter, spirit, and controller of both. So if you have to just remember one thing from this, please remember that knowledge does not mean to know only about matter. That is one-sided knowledge. It means to know about spirit also, and yet it is not complete. It also means to know about the controller of both of them, right? So we saw how matter is made up of 8 things, out of which 5 are gross: earth, water, fire, air, ether, and 3 are subtle: mind, intelligence, and false ego. And we saw that how Lord Krishna is telling in Bhagavad Gita that beyond these 8, there is a higher spirit, is what is spirit. Then we saw the other aspect of knowledge. The other aspect of knowledge, which is about knowing the controller of both, is that how Lord Krishna is the supreme CEO. And in that regard, we saw how Lord Krishna is the supreme controller. We all are also controllers to some extent, but we are all tiny controllers. We are all Ishwara, but Lord is Param Ishwara, like Param computer. So super controller, supreme controller. Then we saw how, if somebody says that, no, I am a controller, I am God, he is actually only cheating himself, because nobody can claim to be the supreme controller. We all are controlled by something or the other. If not by anything else, we are controlled by the coronavirus, by birth, old age, disease, death, by so many things. At every point in time, we are controlled. If not by anything else, by our toothache, by nature's call, whatever. So none of us can claim to be supreme controller. Only Lord Krishna can say that he is the supreme controller, because he is the supreme controller. And in that regard, we saw that how there are 2 types of fools. Though one are those who say God is ordinary human being, and the others are those who say that, we are God. So why are we discussing this? We were discussing this because this is one very important aspect of knowledge, to be able to know who is the supreme. Unless we know who is the supreme, like in one of the earlier sessions, we were talking about the director of IIT Bombay. Unless I know who is the supreme in IIT Bombay, what are the rules and regulations set forth by him, I will make my life miserable. So therefore, it is a very, very practical aspect of knowledge to be able to understand what is this entire creation, and who is the supreme controller or designer behind this entire creation. So we saw how he is also the supreme enjoyer in the last session. And then again, why it is important for us to know this, that Lord is the supreme enjoyer, so that we understand that if we want to enjoy, if we want to become happy, then the only way we can do that is by contributing to his enjoyment, and by enjoying with him, not like him. Just like if I am not the mouse, I cannot enjoy like mouse. I'm not a glass of water, I cannot enjoy like glass of water. Similarly, I am not the supreme controller, I cannot enjoy like supreme controller. The best I can do is I can enjoy with him, because enjoyment we all must do, because we all are made to enjoy. We all are made to seek happiness and pleasure. And as you can see here, one of the pictures here says that how by watering the root of the tree, the whole creation actually gets nourished, right? And then we saw how he is a supreme owner. And then when the practical aspect of this knowledge, so please understand, real knowledge is never practical. We always have to understand that, okay, I understood this point. Now how does it apply practically in my life? So the one aspect of knowledge we saw here is that how Supreme Lord is the ultimate owner. He is the supreme owner. Now, why do we have to know this, right? How does it affect us? It affects us in the sense that if we do not acknowledge that he is the supreme owner, if we do not use things in his service, then we are only acting like that thief. If you remember, we discussed 2 stories of 2 thieves last time, and we saw that how a thief actually deserves punishment, and a thief can never be peaceful. Similarly, if we are behaving like thieves in this world without acknowledging that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord, then there is no wonder that we will be deserving punishment, and there is no wonder that we will always be full of anxieties. We will not be peaceful. Right? So this is what we discussed last time again, that how if for some small electricity which we consume, we have to pay electricity bill to the government, or to whoever the government has outsourced the electricity to. If for you consuming some water, we have to pay water tax or whatever bills in various forms. Imagine What about all those things which we are using in from nature, which nature has given to us, right? So we saw all that. And by misusing matter, we increase our misery. We saw this. And then this is where we ended in the last session, wherein we saw that that is why Bhagavad Gita has been told by Lord Krishna to be like the best knowledge. Right? If you remember, we saw this shloka, Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Pratyakshavāgamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartum Avyayam. And we saw these various aspects which have been highlighted in this verse. Again, we will not get into details of all of these because this is what we have done in the last session. But just to recap, Bhagavad Gita is the king of education. Bhagavad Gita is the most secret of all secrets. Bhagavad Gita is the purest. Bhagavad Gita gives direct perception of the Supreme Lord. It's not something abstract. It's not just something sentimental. It is something very, very tangible. It is something as tangible and as scientific as anything else. Right? It is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. If you remember, this is where precisely we ended in the last session, wherein I said that it is very interesting to see that how Lord Krishna, he is talking about knowledge and he's using the word performed. Su sukham kartum avyayam. He's saying that kartum, that when you perform this knowledge. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean by performing knowledge? It means that real knowledge is never theoretical. When you apply this knowledge in your life, you actually become happy. The application is also happy, and the result of application is also happy. That's what it means to say that the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is joyfully performed. So let's now proceed. So now, till now, we saw some theoretical aspects of knowledge, right? Whatever Lord Krishna is talking about. Now we will see that when that knowledge translates into action, how does it affect our thoughts? How does it affect our words? And how does it affect our actions? That's what we will see in the next part of this session. And we will be ending this session today, right? So the first aspect is, person who is wise or person who is in knowledge, he learns to see every living being as pure spirit soul seated in a different bodily vehicle. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 5, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shapakecha Panditaha Samadarshinaha. Panditaha Samadarshinaha. One who is Pandit, one who is a really learned man, he Samadarshinaha. He sees elephant, a Brahmana, a dog eater, a cow. He sees all of them from an equal vision. He does not discriminate among them. He does not differentiate between them. He sees everybody from the same vision. Why? Because he is not seeing them as bodies. He is seeing them as spirit souls who are residing in a particular body. So a great learned man sees everybody from that vision. And we see a very, very wonderful example of this in the life of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He went to America in 1960s, and there at that time there were a lot of these drug addicts and the hippies. They were very famous at that point in time. They had all kinds of bad habits, and they were looking for something better in life. They did not find, actually at that time in America, there was no concept of family, there was no concept of society. And these people, they were really intelligent people who were seeking for something better in life. But in the absence of any other alternative, they all took to drugs and so many other things. But when A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, when he went there, he actually, even though these people, they were, they would always vomit and they would be between stool, urine and whatnot, and the smell of drugs and everything. Yet, this person, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he did not see them from these material designations. He saw them as spirit souls, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And as a result of that, they got so attracted by him and they started practicing God consciousness, Krishna consciousness in such a wonderful way that they got transformed from hippies to happies. They became such wonderful devotees of Lord Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna every day and following the nice principles, staying away from bad habits and sinful activities. But how this could become possible? This could become possible only because of the spiritual vision of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, without which actually this could not have been possible. So this is real knowledge in action. When you know that people are souls, we are not supposed to unnecessarily exploit them or see them as inferior or differentiate between this and that. So this is a real test of whether we have got knowledge or not. Real knowledge actually should bring out heart transformation. Real knowledge is not just supposed to be in head. So this is called cognitive domain. When you have things only in head, it is cognitive domain. When you have things in hands, that is called as active domain. And when things go to heart, or to soul, that is called as existential domain, right? So theoretical knowledge to intellectual understanding and to realized knowledge. That's how the knowledge should progress. Real knowledge, as we said, is never theoretical. It has to bring about heart transformation. That is a characteristic of real knowledge. And that's what, now what is heart transformation? Heart transformation is very, very evident through the values which we exhibit, to the values which we carry around us, right? Through our character. So it's not just about cultivating skills. Skills means, to be able to son also went. On whose search Yudhishthir went? Yudhishthir went to search a person inferior to him, and Duryodhana went to search a person superior to him. That was the homework given to them. After long search, after trying to find all people all around in the neighboring places, Yudhishthir came back empty-handed, saying that, "My dear sir, please forgive me. I did not do my homework. I was not able to find anybody inferior to me, because I think that I am the most inferior person. Everybody else is better than me." On the other hand, Duryodhana also, he also could not find anybody. After a long day's search, he came back and he said, "Sorry, I also could not do my homework because I could not find anybody superior to me." That was a drastic difference between the value system of Duryodhana and value system of Yudhishthir. Duryodhana is not able to see anybody better than him. That is the value system of Duryodhana. And that's why he is always full of pride, he is always full of anger, he is always full of envy. And even though Pandavas were in forest, who was happier? Pandavas were happier, and Duryodhana was always frustrated, even though they were in forest and he was enjoying their kingdom. Right? That is what value system can do to us. We should have right values. We should be guided by right values and principles in our life. As once, I don't know if I have shared this with you earlier or not, but once I went to SRM Chennai, in SRM University Chennai. So there I went to give a lecture in a seminar hall. The dean had invited me for something there. So while I was climbing the stairs of the auditorium, I saw one poster, a nice poster, which said that in matters of style, swim with the current, and in matters of principle, stand like a rock. So when it comes to principles and values, we should understand that we should never trade them for anything else. It is said, never compromise your standard of thinking to improve your standard of living. So as young students, as budding engineers, scientists, it's my humble request with folded hand, folded palms to each one of you, that there is one thing called standard of living. What is standard of living? Okay, what kind of car you travel in, what kind of watch you buy, what kind of clothes you wear, what kind of house you have, whether you do interior decoration of 10 lakhs or you do interior decoration of 50 lakhs, that all comes under standard of living. And what is standard of thinking? Standard of thinking means what values you have, what is the behavior of your heart, what are your thoughts, what character you have. That is standard of thinking. So it is said we should never compromise standard of thinking to improve our standard of living. We should never do that. So anyway, so when Yudhishthir came back without the homework and Duryodhana came back without the homework, Dronacharya told, "I will solve your problem." To Yudhishthir, he said, "Yudhishthir, here is the person whom you were trying to find. You were trying to find somebody inferior to you. Duryodhana is inferior to you. And Duryodhana, you were trying to find somebody superior to you. Yudhishthir is superior to you." Why it is so? Because Yudhishthir was considering himself to be the lowest, and Duryodhana was considering himself to be the highest. So that's how it works. We all know this very, very famous thing from our moral science days. I don't know whether you all studied moral science in your school or not, because these days there is no subject called moral science. Unfortunately, they are worried about environmental science, which is good. But then environment means outside environment as well as inside environment. Currently, people are worried about outside environment, which is good, which is not bad. But we should also be equally, if not more, worried about the internal environment. And moral science, the subject moral science, which we used to have in our childhood, was actually to improve the inner environment of the heart. When inner environment is good, then the outside environment will automatically be good, right? And what happens when your inner environment is good? You are like a tree on the left, right? I'm sure we all have heard this. That a tree without fruits stand straight with pride, and a tree which is full of good qualities, which is full of fruits and flowers and leaves and everything, it is actually bent down out of humility. Please note, never forget, real knowledge brings humility. Real knowledge does not make somebody puffed up or proud. So let's quickly. So again, if you all were in front of me, we would have done this as a workshop. We would have done this as a interactive exercise. But in the interest of this online forum, let us do it the way I'm doing it right now. Right. So our values can be characterized into various categories. First is personal values. Right. So what are the examples of personal values? For example, honesty, simplicity, punctuality, responsibility, obedience to superiors, self-discipline, integrity in crisis. All these are examples of personal values, right? So for example, responsibility, that means I'm a responsible person. I don't, whenever whenever some responsibility is given to me, I discharge it very well. I'm not a very careless or carefree kind of a person, right? So that's what this value means. Similarly, obedience to superiors and all these things. So these are all personal values. Then comes interpersonal values, right? Which comes into picture when there is an interaction between two entities, right? That is interpersonal values. So one of the examples of interpersonal values is thinking win-win. That means not wanting to always, climb on the shoulder of others, not wanting to pull people down, but rather to help people, right? We should think win-win, that, okay, I also win, you also win. Let's think win-win. Correcting without hurting, that's another value. So in our last session, I think Subraj or one of you asked this question that, when I want to correct somebody, how should I correct and things like that. So this is again one interpersonal value, that on one hand we want to correct, on the other hand we are sensitive to the emotions of the other person. So correcting without hurting. Empathic listening, that means when somebody is trying to share his problem with you, then are we able to hear it very properly, keeping ourselves in his shoes to understand what he is going through. So these all come under interpersonal values. Then come social values, unity in diversity, dignity of labor, culture of sharing, environmental protection, dignity for women. All these come under social values. Then come spiritual values, humility in success. It is said that in success we should not lose our head, and in failure we should not lose our heart. So in spite of our success, we should remain humble, because we should see that as gift of God. Unless God sanctions and unless God gives us this intelligence and the ability to do things. If you remember in one of the previous slides, we saw that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that I am the ability in man. I am the intelligence of the intelligent. I am the strength of the strong. So when using this strength, using this intelligence, using these abilities, when we achieve some results, should we become puffed up? Should we become proud? Not at all. We should always feel dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord, and we should always feel grateful for whatever we have received. And that is what leads to real humility. To the extent we understand God, to that extent we will become humble. To the extent we don't understand God, to that extent we will be proud. And that is why you can see very clearly that how knowledge is equal to God. Knowledge means to know God. Why? Because if knowledge is not about knowing God, if knowledge is about getting a PhD, getting a BTech from IIT and a master's from MIT and a PhD from Stanford, if that was knowledge, real knowledge, then all these people should have been really very, very humble people, right? But they are actually not humble. Only those who are God conscious, that God consciousness in them actually brings humility. So therefore, the real knowledge is that which teaches us about God, because only then we will actually be really humble. And I'm sure you have heard this saying that real knowledge brings humility, right? That means real knowledge is one which teaches us about God. Reverence for all life. If this is what spiritual values teach, just like we saw Panditaha Samadarshinaha. I don't even like to kill an ant. I don't even like to kill a lizard. That's what is spiritual values. I would not like to kill a mosquito. That's what is spiritual value, because I am seeing that the soul I am a soul and he is also a soul. I am in human body, he is in mosquito body. If I cannot give life, I cannot take away life. These are all spiritual values. Then devotional service, rendering service to the Supreme Lord, knowing well that he is the Supreme and we are his part and parcels, and the relationship between us is that of love and service. Saintly association, time and again meeting saintly people and hearing from them. Self-realization, endeavoring to understand who we really are, endeavoring to understand what is the perfection of life. All these come under spiritual values. Steadiness in adversity, when tough times come, when bad times come, when we go through tough times, that is when our real test comes. If you remember, in one of the previous sessions, we discussed this Bhrigu Muni's God test. Remember? We discussed about the God test of Bhrigu Muni. And we saw that how the greatness of a man has to be estimated by his ability to tolerate provoking situations. Is it not? Similarly, whenever we have to really show whether we are man of knowledge or not, the real test comes when we go through adversity, when we go through tough times. In this connection, I would like to recite a very, very nice shloka from Subhashita, which is my personal favorite. It's favorite of my children also. They keep singing this, with action. So it goes like this. Kakah Krishna Pikah Krishna ko bhedo pikka kakayoho vasanta samaye prapte kakah pikah pikah. This is a very wonderful shloka. What it means is Kakah Krishna. Kakah Krishna means black in Sanskrit. So Kakah Krishna means crow is black. Pikah Krishna means the koyal is black, cuckoo is black. Kakah Krishna, Pikah Krishna, ko bhedo pikka kakayoho. Ko bhedo pikka kakayoho means what is the difference between the two? Because this is also black, this is also black. Vasanta samaye prapte. Kakah, Pikah Pikah. When they open their mouth in Vasant Ritu, it becomes very, very clear. One says ka, ka, the other says ku, ku. Then it becomes clear who is who. Similarly, when tough times come, when bad times come, when adversity comes, then एक आदमी पूरा गाली गलौज लेके चालू कर दिया, तब समझ में आ गया अच्छा उसका अंदर में यही असली रंग तभी बाहर आता है. जैसे अगर आप in on something if you do a cheap paint, cheap quality सस्ता वाला paint लगाएंगे, so in rainy season that paint will go away and the inside true color will come out. Similarly, when the rain of tough times come, our real true color comes out from within, right? So steadiness in adversity is a spiritual value. Prayer and purity, spending some time to pray to the Lord, pray to the Lord not to get something. Certainly, if we want something, we can surely pray for that as well. But the real prayer is to become more and more pure, to get more and more love and service towards Lord. And tolerance in tough times, which is what we discussed. So if you see, the value system which has to revolve around us should be made up of personal values, interpersonal values, social values, and spiritual values, right? And that is what is knowledge in action. Another aspect, now we'll take some of these values and we'll zoom into them a little bit more details, for the next 5-6 slides, right? So one very, very prominent value or behavior which we must exhibit in our life is that of acceptance of an authority. Now, this is very, very important, right? So, for example, you see in the life of Shivaji Maharaj, he was very closely guided by Sant Ramdas and Sant Tukaram. So, Shivaji Maharaj is an example of such a great king. He is a pride of India. He is an example of such a great king. Actually, in olden times, those who were really wise and great kings, they were not like dictators. They were not dictators. They were guided by wise people. And it was always their great fortune. They always considered it to be their great fortune to be guided by people who can see, people who are wise, who have the knowledge of Shastras, whose ability to see is not limited because they have good knowledge. So therefore, they are able to see things clearly and better. Right? So Shivaji in his life, similarly, you see that there is a spiritual, there's something called a spiritual parampara. I'm sure you all have attended the Discover Yourself course or whatever you may have called it, and you must have talked about Shabda Praman. You must have heard about Shabda Praman. And one of the aspects of Shabda Praman is the Guru Shishya Sampradaya, Guru Shishya Parampara, wherein we learn from the teacher. In fact, that is what Bhagavad Gita is all about. Bhagavad Gita is actually, that's why called Gita-Upanishad. Gita-Upanishad means, Upa means near, and Shad means to sit. Right? So Upanishad means when you get knowledge by sitting near somebody. So Arjun is sitting near Krishna and he's trying to hear this wonderful knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. That's why Bhagavad Gita is also called as Gita Upanishad. Right? So to hear from authority, to submit ourselves to authority is a very, very important aspect of value system. Very, very important. Sometimes we think that, "Arey, मैं अपने बाप का नहीं सुनता हूँ, तुम्हारा क्या सुनूंगा?" Such people, they don't understand that how they are only making fool of themselves. They are only cheating themselves in their lives. Because unless we accept the authority of wise people, there is no hope in our life. If you remember, we just discussed that how we are born ignorant. We are born uncultured. And only by hearing from authorities, only by hearing from wise and cultured people, we also develop some wisdom and we also develop some culture. Right? So we see example of Arjun submitting himself to Krishna. So in fact, as you may be knowing, the very premise of Bhagavad Gita, the very context or the setting of Bhagavad Gita begins with Arjuna's confusion. It is said confusion is the prerequisite for enlightenment, right? So the Bhagavad Gita begins with Arjuna's confusion, and in that confusion, what does he do? He was very bewildered. First of all, he was trying to himself think pros and cons. Should I do this? Should I do that? No, if I do this, this is a problem. If I do this, this is a problem. Like that, he was thinking back and forth, and then he became so completely confused. He was not able to understand what is the right thing which he should be doing. And then he surrendered to Lord Krishna. What did he say in chapter 2? What did he say? He said, Karpanna dosho pahat swabhava precchami tvam dharma samudha cheta yat shrehasya nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. Till that time he was talking with Krishna like a friend, and therefore Krishna was also reciprocating with Arjuna like a friend. But as soon as Arjuna submitted himself to Krishna, saying that, my dear Krishna, by my own strength I am not able to overcome this dilemma. Can you please help me? Can you please enlighten me? I am becoming your disciple. Please enlighten me. Like that Arjuna told Krishna. So accepting an authority in our life is very, very important. You see all these Devi Devtas, demigods, whenever they are in problem, they approach Vishnu, Brahma for help, and they accept his authority. Once these Devtas, they were overpowered by demons. They had been overthrown by demons, and these demigods, they approached Vishnu, Krishna, saying that, my dear Krishna, please help us. And Krishna said, sorry, it is not good time for you. Do one thing, go and shake hands with the demons and do Samudra Manthan. So that's the beginning of the famous Samudra Manthan Leela, right? So please imagine that demigods are approaching Krishna thinking that Krishna will help them, right? On several occasions he does. But on this particular occasion, what is Lord Krishna telling? What is Vishnu telling demigods? Vishnu is telling demigods that, my dear demigods, time is not right for you right now. Do one thing, go and shake hands with those demons, and together you do Samudra Manthan, and then something good will happen for you, right? And demigods did not argue. They did not say, oh no, wait a second, this, but, if, but, then, how, no, they are our, dushman, they are our enemies, how can we go and shake hands with them and all that? No, demigods, that's why they are glorious. That's why they are considered to be devotees of God. Why? Because they accept his authority, right? So they were so submissive that as soon as Krishna said this, they said, okay. Right? Similarly, when they were so tortured by Ravana, when they were not able to bear the atrocities committed by Ravana, they all went to Brahma, and along with Brahma, they all went to Vishnu, asking for help. And Vishnu said, don't worry, I will come as Ram and I'll kill this Ravana. I'll finish him off. And then he said, and you all do one thing, you all, take birth as monkeys, in various monkeys families and bear families and all that, right? Again, the demigods, please note, Lord Krishna is telling them that you all take birth as monkeys. They are not saying, Arey, Bhagavan ji, thoda kuch to hamara izzat kariye, at least, at least ask us to take birth like as a human being, like, like you will be doing. Why are you making us monkeys? They did not do like that. They just thought, okay, whenever Krishna is saying something, whenever an authority, a representative of Krishna is saying something, it must be for our ultimate benefit. So it's one of the very, very important values to be able to accept authority. Another very, very important practical value, of really real knowledge is a service attitude. By service to Hari Guru Vaishnavas, the desire to learn is involved. So it is said that knowledge, we can get knowledge only when we are humble, only when we have service attitude. Without a service attitude, without a desire to serve the teacher, actually that is what earlier education system was. There used to be Guru, there used to be Gurukul, and the Shishya, the disciple, they would render service to the Guru. And by rendering service to the Guru, their ground of heart would become fertile to receive the seed of knowledge. Otherwise, somebody may give knowledge, but it may have no effect on us because we don't have the right attitude. So seed is not enough. The land should also be fertile. Please note this analogy. The seed is not enough. Land should also be fertile. So the seed of knowledge would ripen, would grow only when the land is also fertile. And what is the equivalent of fertile land? The equivalent of fertile land is the service attitude, the humility. That's why Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. He says, Tad vidhi. What is the way to get this knowledge? Tad vidhi pranipatena. We have to surrender. Pranipatena. Pariprashnena. We have to ask questions. Real knowledge, it's not a one-way dialogue. Unfortunately, right now in this class, we are having a one-way dialogue, but then that's why in the last 30 minutes, you can see we have a two-way interaction, right? So real knowledge is not to be seen as a one-way dialogue. So Krishna says, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya, render service. Upadekshanti te jnanam. Then the wise people will give knowledge to you. Jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. They are able to see the truth and they will impart the truth unto you. Now we see a very, very interesting definition by Chanakya Pandit. I'm sure all of you know that how, Chanakya Pandit was one of the great moralists which we have seen ever in the history of mankind. A very, very amazing, very, very wise person, a devotee of God himself as well. He gave 3 tests. Whenever you have to ask whether somebody is a person of character or not, what kind of character a person has, remember these 3 tests. Matravat paradareshu, paradraveshu lotravat, Atmavat sarva bhuteshu yah pashyati sa panditah. He is telling who is a real pandit, who is a person who can be trusted, who is a person who is wise, who is a person who is really learned. 3 characteristics. Matravat pardareshu. Matravat pardareshu means one who sees other women as mother. Now please make a striking contrast between this culture of seeing other women as mother, and that's why in India, it's even today, many times, other ladies are called as Mataji or Behenji, if you see that, because that is real culture. That is a sign of character, that you see other women, except for your wife, as mothers. That is the respect which our culture gives to women. On the other hand, modern culture, it only encourages to see women as an object of exploitation or an object of enjoyment. And that's so bad. So, but a test of character, a test of culture is to be able to see other women as mother and not as an object of enjoyment. And here we see in this picture a very, very striking historical example to highlight this fact. Once what happened, Shivaji's soldiers, so there were always this, tussle between Aurangzeb and Shivaji, and these Shivaji soldiers, they thought that let us teach some lessons to these Mughal soldiers. So they went to some place and they attacked the Mughal soldiers. They defeated them, and then they tried to do what the Mughal soldiers used to do. So Mughal soldiers, whenever they would defeat some Hindu people, they would forcefully take their wives, take their sisters, take their daughters, and they would rape them. They would do all kinds of bad things with them. So these Shivaji soldiers also thought that let us teach them a lesson, and they also wanted to do the same. So what they did is one of the soldiers of Shivaji, he captured one of the girls, from that camp, whom they defeated, and he brought in front of Shivaji saying that, my dear sir, my dear king, here is she for your enjoyment, and you will be amazed to see what Shivaji replied. Shivaji said that, you rascal, this is not what is our culture. She is a married woman. Please, with all respects, take her and return her to her husband, like that. That was that is what kind of kings we had. That is what kind of a culture, that is what kind of a legacy we had. That is a test of character. Matravat pardareshu. That was first. Second, yeah, by the way, there is another example in Shastra, about Arjun. So if you know Arjun, at one point in time, during their exile, he went to Swargalok, to collect some Divya weapons, Divyastra. And in Swargalok, actually Urvashi, who was one of the Apsaras of Swarga, she became very attracted by Arjun. And Urvashi said that, my dear Arjun, I have got so attracted by you that I want to marry you. And Arjun, actually now in Swarga, these Apsaras, they don't grow old. And actually Urvashi had married one of the ancestors of Arjun earlier. So from that perspective, Arjun was seeing Urvashi as his mother. So then Arjun told, my dear Urvashi, I'm so sorry. Actually, I see you as my mother. Matravat pardareshu. So Arjun is again showing by his example what actually it means to be a man of high character, what it means to be a noble man. That you don't see women around as objects of enjoyment, rather you see them as mothers. Second characteristic of character is paradraveshu losravat. Paradraveshu losravat means, dravya means wealth. Paradraveshu losravat means to see others' wealth as garbage. Now, please note, it does not mean that, you mistreat others' wealth or you spoil others' wealth. That's not what is the meaning of this. The meaning of this is that you are not, जैसे बोलते हैं ना मुंह से लार टपकते हैं ना, you are not eyeing upon others' wealth. That's what it means, right? Just like, for example, Duryodhan was always eyeing upon the wealth of the Pandavas. He was so envious that he was not happy with his wealth, and he would always look at, okay, this guy, how this guy has this, I should have it. Anywhere anything good is there, it should be for my enjoyment. Paradraveshu lostravat. We should not do like that. What we should do is paradraveshu lostravat. That means whatever somebody else is having, it is his hard work, it is his destiny, he is having it, no problem. I will do my own hard work and I will also have whatever I want, but I should not always eye upon somebody else's property. We should never do that. We should see others' property just like garbage in the street. Again, It does not mean we should mistreat others' property. It does not mean we should spoil others' property. What it means is we should not be greedy over others' property. That's what it means, right? So that is another test of character. What was the first test of character? See other women as mothers. What is the second test of character? See others' property as garbage in the street. That means just not be bothered about it, right? Not like the Onida ad. So I'm sure you all, I don't know whether you all have seen that ad in a long time. I was a child at that time, so there used to be this Onida ad in TV, and they showed that how one person he bought Onida TV, and the tagline used to say Onida, owners neighbors envy, owners pride. So neighbors envy, owners pride. So whoever purchases this Onida TV, he becomes proud, and the neighbor who has not been able to purchase Onida TV, he becomes envious, right? So that's wrong. That's not the right civilization. That's not the right culture. In fact, in today's modern economy, it is said very amusingly so that people buy things which they don't need with money which they don't have to impress those whom they hate. This is the irony of today's civilization. This is the completely opposite of the simple living, high thinking principle. Remember, I was talking about not compromising standard of thinking for the sake of standard of living, right? Ideally, we are supposed to follow the principle of simple living and high thinking. Unfortunately, people are simply living and hardly thinking. That is unfortunate. But simple living, high thinking means it means opposite of this principle. What is actually happening today? What is happening today is people are purchasing those things which they don't need. That means unnecessary artificial, needs. People are purchasing those things which they don't need with money which they don't have. They take loans. They purchase things on credit, EMIs, right, with money which they don't have to impress those whom they hate. Because neighbor has got this car, so I should have also bigger car. Just to show him that I am greater than him, we purchase something, right? So that's the whole motivation behind current economy, but that's bad. And the tough times like these, in the lockdown situation, corona situation, certainly everybody is affected, and certainly it is bad news for almost everybody. Yet these tough times actually teach us some lessons. They teach us how we should look within. They teach us how there is not much in living a superficial life. There's not much in living a life of show. There's not much in living a life of consumerism. We should rather become more deep and understand the value of this wonderful life which we have got. Anyway, so this is the second test of character, Padraveshu Losrava. And the third test of character is Atmavat Sarvabhuteshu. Even Jesus Christ in Bible says, if you remember, in one of the testaments it comes, he says, love thy neighbor as thyself. I'm sure you all have heard this in your moral science class, if at all you have ever attended moral science class. It says, love thy neighbor as thyself. That means you should love your neighbor as yourself, right? Just like you would not want to be mistreated, your neighbor would also not want to be mistreated. If you would like others to say good words to you, nice words to you, kind words to you, so you should also say good words, nice words, kind words to others. There's a story which I was once, narrating for my children, that there was a dog and this dog went into a place full of mirrors, right? And Sheesh Mahal kind of a place he went to, and dog by nature, so dog does not know it's a mirror, right? So many mirrors are there, but what dog was seeing is his own reflection. But he saw there are all these so many 100, 200 dogs which have surrounded me. So he started barking, and when this dog started barking, what happened? There were so many echoes which came, and his own reflection also, he was seeing the reflections are barking. So he felt that, okay, all the dogs are barking, right? The whole world is a mirror of one's own consciousness. So, and when this dog stopped barking, all the dogs stopped barking, right? So this is of course, it's a very funny and humorous story, but then this teaches a very, very profound lesson that we should do to others as we want others to do to us. That's what is the meaning of Atmavat Sarvabhuteshu. We should see everybody else as our own self. Just like we want people to be kind with ourselves, we should be kind with others. Right? And we see here in this example, in the picture here, we see the example of Maharaj Shibi. Maharaj Shibi, he was such a wonderful king. That is how our kings used to be in olden times. That there was this eagle and there was this dove, and this eagle was chasing dove. Actually, they were two demigods who had come to test how glorious Maharaj Shibi is, right? So, but anyway, so this eagle was chasing this dove, and dove was running away for his life, and eagle was hell bent on killing this dove and eating. And this dove came to Maharaj Shibi, said, Maharaj Shibi, I am your citizen. Please give me shelter. Please protect me. Maharaj Shibi said, yes, please come. Don't worry. I will protect you. Who can harm you? And this eagle came, and eagle told Shibi, Shibi, please give this dove to me. He is my food. Shibi said, no, 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 I have given this dove a vow, a promise that, I will protect him. Eagle said that, by the way, just like dove is your citizen, similarly, I am also your citizen. If I don't eat this dove, I will become hungry. I will stay hungry. How can, how can I, in your rule, be hungry? So Shibi said, oh, okay, let me do one thing. Let me give the flesh from my body equivalent to the weight of this dove. See, look at this. This is the height of Atmavatsara Bhuteshu. Treating every living entity, the problem of every living entity as one's own. It is said, para dukha dukhi. When we see the dukh of others, we should feel sad. When we see sukh of others, we should feel happy. That is a test of knowledge. That is a test of character. So then Maharaj Shivi actually, he sat on this taraju and he wanted to give flesh equivalent to the weight of the dove. But as they were there to test Maharaj Shivi, actually the weight always kept increasing, and then Maharaj Shivi kept cutting his flesh more and more until eagle and dove, they realized that no, this king is really, really glorious. We can't defeat him like that. But please know, this is one of the symptoms of knowledge. Treat all living entities as one's own self. Otherwise, what kind of knowledge will it be when people just roam around? They try to destroy others, they try to exploit others, they try to make fun of others, they try to ridicule others. That's not knowledge. That's not knowledge. That's like bringing out the beast from within. Real knowledge, real education brings out the best from within, and people become such wonderful walking gems. We should become valuable assets to the society. We should not become burden to the society. Another aspect of knowledge, and these are the last 2-3 slides now of the time. Yeah, 4:19. We have 10 more minutes. So another practical aspect of knowledge is our behavior with juniors, equals, and seniors, right? So please remember, what we are discussing now is some practical aspects of knowledge which reflects in our thoughts, words, and actions, right? So one of the very important things which it has to reflect into is how we should behave with juniors, equals, and seniors, right? We are supposed to be compassionate to juniors. We are supposed to be friendly with equals, and we are supposed to be respectful towards seniors. That's a right behavior, right? We should be compassionate with juniors. That means we should try to help them. We should try to, be always ready to, help them in whatever, protect them and help them in whichever way they want. Then equals, we should develop very friendly relationship with equals. And seniors, we should respect seniors. We should worship seniors. That's the right understanding. On the other hand, what is the wrong understanding? That, with juniors, you try to exploit them. You see that they serve you, and you try to boss over them. You try to exploit them. That's wrong, right? With equals, you try to fight with them. You try to usurp their property. You try to envy them, right? That's really. And with seniors, that means those who have something better than us, we are jealous of them. We are envious of them. This is all wrong behavior, wrong characteristics. Anybody who behaves like this, that means he's a foolish person. He does not understand the real knowledge. And now somebody may ask a question that, sir, yes, pravachan, bol vachan, bahut ho gaya, lekin what we have seen in the history is that, when we try to become kind, others only cheat us. They exploit us. So actually, it's not the fact. That is a test of our knowledge, right? Agar aapka knowledge thoda 1-2 din ke liye tha, then you will feel like this. But if you have if your heart is really made of gold, and if you are really having these value system, then just by temporary defeat or temporary slowdown, you would not give up on your values. In fact, many times Lord and nature puts these tests in front of us so that everybody understands that our values were real values, or they were only show bottle values just because we wanted to win. Please note, those who live by these values, those who live by this knowledge, those who live by this character, they don't do it just to become popular, or they don't do it just to win. They don't do it just to come first, right? They do it because they understand that this is the best thing to be done. This is what pleases the Lord. Dharmo rakshati rakshataha. That means if we protect religion, if we protect dharma, dharma will protect us. Even with Pandavas, you see, even though apparently it turns out that they suffered so many losses and they suffered so much harm, but ultimately who won? Ultimately who won? So ultimately the Pandavas won. Who was Lord Krishna was on whose side? Lord Krishna was on the Pandavas side, right? Even though Pandavas had a small army, even though Kauravas' army was undefeatable, people like Bhishma, people like Dronacharya, they were undefeatable. They could have just never been defeated by anybody. And their army was 11 Akshahonis. Pandavas' army was only 7 Akshahonis. It is said that Kauravas' army was like a big whale and Pandavas' army was like a small fish, right? Yet who won? Pandavas won. Why? Because Lord Krishna was on their side. And why was Lord Krishna on their side? Because Pandavas were people who exhibited such high knowledge, such high character, such high values. That's why Yudhishthir is glorified as Dharmaraj. That's why Yudhishthir is glorified as Ajat Shatru. Ajat Shatru means जिसका कोई शत्रु पैदा नहीं हुआ है, जिसका कोई enemy नहीं है. He used to love even Duryodhan so much. That is what is a test of real knowledge, real character, real wealth. So just to end, so I would like to summarize everything in the form of this perfect gentleman, right? So as we saw that real knowledge is supposed to make us perfect gentlemen. The perfect gentleman has three characteristics. First, he is sense controlled. Right? So perfect gentleman is one who is sense controlled. That means he has such character. He has such character that he sees other women as mother. He sees other property as garbage, and he sees other people as his own self. That is the test of character. And not only that, he is so sense controlled that he does not just allows his senses to get carried. Like just for the sake of giving pleasure to tongue, he is killing innocent animals. Just for the sake of forgetting the reality, he is taking into intoxication, or just to make quick money, he is doing gambling, or just for the sake of gratifying his senses, he is doing illicit sex. No, he is a sense controlled person. So what are we discussing? We are discussing the first characteristic of perfect gentleman, which is sense controlled, right? Sense controlled means no meat eating. Just for the sake of satisfying my tongue, should I kill innocent creatures? No intoxication. Just to be able to, already we are in illusion in this world. On top of it, why should we add one more layer of illusion? That is nonsense. Therefore, it is called, these four things are called as pillars of sin. No gambling. People, they don't want to work hard. They want quick money, and therefore they get into all these bad habits. No illicit sex. It is like, the desire to gratify our senses is the grossest form of sense gratification. We should stay away from these things. Prabhupada said that whoever observes these four rules will become a perfect gentleman. Second is, what is the second characteristic of perfect gentleman? One who is really wise, one who is really in knowledge. The second characteristic is he is perfect in his duty. Please note, that's also important. It's not that, you have got all this real knowledge and you are just a wise person, you are sitting on chair. What are you doing? Nothing. What about parents? Nothing. What about children? Nothing. What about wife? Nothing. What about studies? Nothing. What about career? Nothing. It's not like that. A perfect gentleman is one who is perfect in his duty. That means that it may be our duty to be a student, to study nicely. It may be a duty to raise children nicely as father. It may be our duty to take care of wife nicely as a husband. It may be duty to take care of parents nicely as a son. Whatever our duties are, a perfect gentleman is one who does his duties very, very nicely. We see example of Hanumanji in this regard, that how he actually had all these, he did his duties so perfectly. And why was he able to do that? Because of DOS. Why does the computer start? Disk operating system. If you remember, before Microsoft Windows came, there was DOS, right? I don't know if you all were studying computers at that time, but so this DOS, you can remember: discipline, obedience, and self-control. We will be perfect in our duty when we are disciplined, when we are obedient, and we are self-controlled. So Hanumanji, when he was given this mission, actually he took blessings of Lord Ram, and he would never do anything without the blessings of Lord Ram. And he was disciplined. Like, in between, if one golden mountain came, and this golden mountain told Hanumanji that, Arey, my dear Hanumanji, you are going on a long mission. You will get tired. Meanwhile, why don't you take some rest on my peak, And Hanumanji said, no, sorry, I cannot relax right now. I'm going on a mission. You see, that's what a disciplined person is. A disciplined person does not waste time. A disciplined person does not get carried away, by things. A disciplined person makes a nice schedule and he acts according to schedule. So much time for work, so much time for recreation, so much time for eating, so much time for sleeping, like that. And then when Hanumanji reached Lanka, there actually it is described in Valmiki Ramayana that how he was seeing so many young ladies, who were in half dressed or undressed condition. Hanumanji is like Bal Brahmachari, and he exhibited such self-control that he was able to just focus on his work, and he was able to find Mother Sita without getting distracted by all that nonsense, right? So only when we have discipline, we have obedience, and we have self-control, obedience to the superiors, obedience to the Supreme Lord, so that we understand that by his will, by his blessings, we can actually achieve great things, right? So that's how we become perfect in our duty. And third is devotee of Krishna. So if you see, this can also be seen as, the first one can be seen as character, the second one can be seen as competence, and the third one can be seen as devotion. So please understand, to become an ideal hero, to really exhibit the symptoms of real knowledge, we have to become a perfect gentleman. And a perfect gentleman is sense controlled, he is perfect in his duty, and he is a devotee of Krishna. So which is what we are just going to discuss in the last 2 minutes now. And what does it mean to become a devotee of Krishna, and why should we become devotee of Krishna? Because it is the goal of all knowledge, to love God, to love all, and recognizing God's love for us. So as we discussed, knowledge means to know Krishna. Success means to please Krishna. The goal of all knowledge is to love and serve Krishna. So unless one is a devotee of God, it will be like zeros, right? So okay, I am sense controlled. So I have 3 zeros with me. I am perfect in my duty, so I have 5 more zeros. So 3 zeros and 5 zeros, they become how much? They become 3 plus 5, 8 zeros, and 8 zeros still is a 0, correct? But if I add a 1 in the beginning, then 8 zeros would become 10 crores, correct? That is what is Krishna. When we add Krishna in our life, when we add God in our life, then everything else becomes really, really meaningful. And everything else becomes full of purpose and full of meaning. And this actually gives meaning to everything, right? So therefore, character is also important, competence is also important, and devotion is also important. And Lord Krishna, who is the supreme controller, one of his characteristics which have been mentioned in the Shastras is that he is Bhakta Vatsal. He is controlled by pure loving devotional service. He gets controlled, even though he is a supreme controller. By becoming a devotee, when we become a devotee, he becomes so obliged to us that he agrees to become controlled by his devotee. Just like we see here an example of Sudama. As soon as Sudama Brahman came to Dwarka to meet Krishna, what is Krishna doing? Krishna ran towards his gate. He welcomed Sudama and he made Sudama sit on the nice asan. And Krishna actually worshipped Sudama. He washed his feet. And on the right hand side, we see what is Krishna doing. Krishna is becoming driver of Arjun. Can you imagine? The supreme controller. He is actually becoming a driver, chariot driver, Sarthi. That's why he is called as Parth Sarthi of Arjun. Such is the glory. So therefore, therefore we should add this one in our life, one of Krishna. And I want to leave you with some practical examples or practical day-to-day things which we can do to add this one in our life. As I said, knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is not theoretical. Knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is not abstract. Knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is not sentimental. It is something tangible and concrete. By making small changes in our life, we can actually, all of us can add that one of Krishna in our life. How? By A, B, C, D. We should always remember this A, B, C, D. A, for association of devotees. Whenever there is an opportunity, we should associate with like-minded people. We should hear from our senior devotees, senior friends, seniors who can actually guide us on the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. Right? Association of devotees, satsanga. 2, Bhagavad Gita. We should study some nice books. Whatever your Let's Evolve volunteers or whoever is your facilitator, whatever books they are advising you to study, we should very nicely study those books on a daily basis. If not daily basis, at least once in 2 days or whatever. So that is B, books or Bhagavad Gita. C, we should chant Hare Krishna. I think I'm assuming that each one of you who are attending this particular session today, I'm sure each one of you are chanting Hare Krishna on a daily basis in your life. If you are not chanting, please, it's my humble request to each one of you that please please start making this practice of chanting Hare Krishna for half an hour, 1 hour, whatever time you can, to chant Hare Krishna in your life on a daily basis. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That is one of the most, that is one of the easiest and the most effective way of adding one in our life. And the last, the D, is diet. We should make sure, actually it is said that we are what we eat. Whatever we are eating is shaping our consciousness. It has a great role to play in our consciousness. And therefore, we should be very, very careful about what kind of food we are eating. The best food which one can eat is that food which has been prepared with love and offered to Lord Krishna with love. So you offer bhoga and you get prasad, right? So if you eat only prasad, then your whole existence will be purified. And this is a very, very wonderful and tangible way of adding one in our life. So please remember this one formula: no God, no peace. No God, no peace. We have been talking about rekindling wisdom, and the epitome of wisdom, the ultimate, the culmination of knowledge is to know God. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So what we'll do is very, very, very quickly, we'll recap from what we discussed, from where we started today. Right? So we started with this particular shloka of Bhagavad Gita, wherein we see various characteristics of this knowledge. We then saw one aspect of knowledge, that we see others as, we see everybody from a spiritual vision. We see everybody as soul, be it a lizard or a cockroach or an ant, and we don't want to harm anybody. We see everybody as souls. We saw one example of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who made hippies into happies because of his spiritual vision. Had he differentiated between them, had he seen them as, third class people or low class people, then this transformation would not have happened. And we saw that how real knowledge brings about heart transformation. That which real knowledge is not staying in the head. It from head, it has to go to the heart. Then we saw what does it really mean to go into the heart. It exhibits in the form of various values and the character which we exhibit. We saw the story of Yudhishthir and Duryodhan of finding an inferior and superior person. We saw this example of a tree, that how a tree full of fruits and flowers is bent out of humility. That's how real knowledge, that's in the same way one who has real knowledge is humble. Then we saw these various kinds of value system, personal values, interpersonal values, social values, and spiritual values. After that, we saw that how one of the most important spiritual values in our life is accepting an authority and to live life under somebody's guidance. Otherwise, we will be very whimsical and we will be like a kite without the rope, without the thread. If you have seen a kite which flies, and if you cut the thread, what will happen to the kite? It kind of go like this and will be dragged by air here and there. On the other hand, when the kite is tied with the thread, it can actually fly high. Another characteristic of knowledge which we saw was service attitude. Without service attitude and humility, our ground of heart will not be fertile to receive real wisdom. Then we saw this very, very beautiful shloka from Chanakya Pandit about 3 tests of a really learned man, 3 tests of character. First was seeing other women as mother. Second was seeing others' property as garbage. Not to mean that we spoil that, not to mean that we look down upon that, not to mean that we take advantage of that. What it means is that we don't eye upon it, we are not greedy for it. Atmavat sarvabhuteshu means treat all living entities as one's own self. And then we saw another way wherein our knowledge is reflected or our value system is reflected is in terms of the way we treat juniors, equals, and seniors. There's a right way of dealing with them and there's a wrong way of dealing with them. Then we saw that, if I'm becoming like such a good person, man, it's very strange that we have a fear of becoming good also. We think that when we become good, others may exploit us or others may harm us. Actually, that's not a fact. If you think like that, then you have failed the test. Those who actually are really men of character, those who are men of values, they don't, just because of some small problem in their life here and there, they don't give up those values. In fact, that comes as a test to see whether we are really, really genuine or we are just practicing some values or character just because it can help me in some way or the other. That's very superficial. And if we persevere, if we continue practicing values, if we continue being a person of a good character, then please understand God will always be on our side. Dharma rakshati rakshataha. And then towards the end, we saw how a perfect gentleman has character, he has competence, and he has devotion, all 3. What does it mean to be having a good character? Along with other things which we saw, it also means to do these 4 things, to not do these 4 things: no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit. That means you can control your senses. That means you are not just getting carried away by your senses. Second, perfect in duty. Whatever duties have been prescribed to us by Shastras, whether it be of student, whether it be of father, mother, whatever, we have to do our duties very nicely. And then third is we have to be a devotee of Krishna, because ultimately the culmination of knowledge is to know God and to love God and to serve Him. And and to be able to see God's love in everything around us. And when we do that, then actually God likes to become our servant. Lord actually becomes controlled by pure loving devotional service. And finally, towards the end, we saw a very simple 4-point formula that how we can add that 1 in our life, without which everything becomes a 0. And with that 1, more the zeros, the better. If you have 1 0, it becomes 10. If you have 2 zeros, it becomes 100. If you have 3 zeros, it becomes 1000. If you have 4 zeros, it becomes 10,000, right? So to keep adding more and more zeros, no problem. That's wonderful. But please make sure that that 1 is there in front every time. And how to have that 1 every time? By A, B, C, D, which is we discussed, right? So with this, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.